Badass Attitudes, licensed here. A podcast for successful badassery with Kelly Orchard. Certifying badasses, one podcast at a time.
That's right, I am certifying badasses, one podcast at a time. Hey, hello, happy May, badass. Here I am, still broadcasting and podcasting from my cozy little trailer here in Georgetown, Texas. I have a week and a half left here. I've been here 2.5 weeks, thoroughly enjoying it. So I'll share a little bit about the experience with you, and then I have some other, words of wisdom. Obviously, that's kind of what this is all about, right? That's why you keep coming back. And thank you. I'm watching the downloads increase weekly, and I just wanted to say thank you because you're one of them. You're one of the badasses that keep coming back. And, learning how to live successful badassery, or hop on the bus to Badassville. It's all fun and games over here until we start talking seriously about your mental health. That's what my top priority is. I've shifted my focus also on, talking about people with their businesses and how you're operating and team building and whatnot, when, it all comes down to something very personal to you and how you're feeling and how your emotions are being affected by what I wake up every morning and say, it's a mad, 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 mad world. It is. The world is mad. And you come here to this podcast not to have me talk about the goings on in the world today, although I will at least recognize that we're in such a state of turmoil. I can't avoid it. As I talk to my clients on a daily basis, I'm hearing their concerns and their issues as well. And as a therapist, remain completely neutral with, no real opinions except, to mirror those of my client who comes in. And they're not talking so much about business anymore. Whereas before it was, what do we do about, working from home versus coming back to the office, or mask mandates, or whatever it is, to now more about how am I going to get through this day? Because every morning I wake up and I check the news, or I review my feed on my whatever social media platform I'm getting my information from, and it's just one thing after another. And how do you manage that? Well, when your mental health starts to tank, you've got to dig deeper. And that's what I specialize in. I'm constantly doing it myself. Yesterday I was working with a client with heart math method, which is heart rate variability, which is very close, near and dear to my heart, obviously. And explaining to this client how I learned that I naturally was using the heart math technique without even knowing it. It was something intrinsic in me. But, even as we go through, learning these new techniques, it's not about it's going to solve all your problems, but it will help you reduce the negative impact that the stress is having on your body. So I have these badass concepts and these badass tools. And when we pick apart the acronym of badass, so another client of mine is saying, I'm not feeling very badass today. And part of the badass is not always having that attitude that you project, but also giving yourself permission to know that, hey, I need some time out. I need to recharge my batteries. I need to recalibrate. And that's what we're talking about. It's like, so you got to stop thinking about when this is going to end and focus on getting through this moment. Stop thinking about the finish line and start thinking about the one step you need to take right now to move forward. I used getting a trailer and working remotely in the future as part of that demonstration, because what I've come to refresh my memory here working remotely from a trailer in Texas at an RV park is, this is not a new concept for me. It's not. My dad brought home our very first motorhome when I was 6 years old. So I've traveled the country in an RV my whole childhood. I've been in all all of the contiguous states. I've been in Hawaii too, but you don't drive the motorhome to Hawaii, right? You got to fly there. But I've been in all the contiguous states. In fact, Alaska is the last state that I need to go to, which is on my bucket list, and I'll get around to it. COVID has prevented that from occurring. But the thing is that I have done this my entire life. In fact, when I was working in compliance, FCC compliance consulting with my dad, which was after we owned the radio stations, we would travel in our motorhome to see our clients, and it was our remote office. Sometimes we would park the motorhome in the parking lot of the radio or television station that we were working with, or we'd stay at a KOA or some sort of a campground within the city within that area, that region. And this was before Uber. Somebody from the staff of the station would come and pick us up, and we would go and do our work and gather up what we needed and bring it back over to the motorhome, where we had brought our computer and our printer, and we had all of our office supplies, and we would work in the motorhome. And I got to have my kids with me, and we would do this for weeks at a time. So me doing this now is not foreign. It's more of a refresher. It's like, oh yeah, I love doing this. It's not like working at all. And so my future plan is to acquire my own trailer and live and work in it. But it's something that's kind of like part of my finish line. I know that there are things that need to be done before I can do that. So I'm not putting it on hold. It's like that's the picture on the wall that I'm working toward. But here's the thing. It's a simplified plan. It's not the big plan that I had a couple of years ago. It has shifted. It has changed. It has been recalibrated. For the past few weeks, I've been referring to what we need to do as recalibrate our badassery. Now, I've spent my life in broadcasting. I am not a broadcast engineer, but I am going to introduce you to my geeky side. I tell my friends that I have learned broadcasting by broadcast engineering by osmosis. I would say that most of my influences in the broadcast field are because of engineers. I even have a book that I had started to write, which is in a different phase right now, about radio and some of the engineering challenges that they have. But the thing is that one of the things that I have learned and have always known is that calibration is done on a regular basis to maintain the transmitter signal. That's right. It's a necessary and routine assessment and task to assure that the broadcast is aligned with the signal, and that the station isn't drifting off and creating spurious emissions. All that engineering jargon, right? Kind of, you're like, what the heck are you talking about? But take a listen to what that means for you. You need to recalibrate your thoughts and emotions and actions so that they are on track and aligned with the life that you know you want to live, what you want to broadcast and receive for your life, your business, and your relationships. What are spurious emissions? All right, so some brief definitions based on a simple internet search. I don't even really have the resources to provide for you. You just go do an internet search on what is a spurious emission, and this is what it'll come up with. Spurious emissions are emissions or a signal which are caused by unwanted transmitter effects such as harmonic emission, parasitic emission, intermodulation products, and frequency conversion products, which exclude OOB emissions. It's an unwanted signal generated by the amplifier outside the frequency band of interest. It's called a spurious signal. Harmonics are a subset of spurious signals found at integer multiples in the fundamental frequency of the signal. I know, my head explodes too just reading that. It really does. It's like algebra, calculus, physics. I understand the concepts, but so basically what that's saying is that it's an automatic thing that the transmission of a signal can start to get off the signal just because if you're not paying attention to it. All right. If you're not, so on a regular basis, a routine, an engineer goes and recalibrates the transmitter signal to make sure that it's aligned. Okay. Okay. So what happens when it's not in alignment? It starts to go off on different tangents. It starts to bleed into other signals and and it's, like they say, harmonics. It starts to sound, like there's an echo or there's more things going on. It's wrong. That it's acting out in a way that's not in line with the signal. So what your transmitter. So when you take the idea that you are like a radio station, transmitting a signal with your programming. Your thoughts are the programs. Your signal is the behavior. So what message are you broadcasting? Is it negative, angry, fearful, irritated, annoyed? Okay. Then your behavior is going to exhibit that, right? So it's time to recalibrate if you want to flip the format on fear and negativity. Now you might be asking, okay, well, what the heck, how is that going to be helpful in the crazy, wild, mad world around us? Well, immediately in recalibrating, at least the way that you respond to it will be different instead of reacting in a negative way. So you can imagine if you calm yourself, if you recalibrate each morning, center yourself on the task at hand for the day. That's one of the things that I've had to realize, or not realize, but kind of refresh my memory about the mindfulness of being present in the moment. And this trip out here to Texas has been extremely helpful for me to remember that, because here I am. I may be working remotely, and that's all that you're really hearing about. But I'm also spending time with my family, which I have a new grandson, Emmett, and he is just, I think he's only going to be like 7 weeks old, coming up this Friday. And, I was sharing with my daughter, they've had some challenges themselves since I've been here. A rash of pink eye has gone through the household over there. And it's caused my daughter to have to keep the little ones in their trailer and kind of in confined spaces and doing massive amounts of laundry and not really knowing exactly where the pink eye was contracted, but having to go and get prescriptions and eye drops and whatnot in the midst of taking care of, an infant. It's been a little bit stressful for her over the last couple of days, my daughter, actually the past week. But I'm grateful to be here because even though I'm working, whenever I have a free moment, I get to go over there and hang out with my family and spend quality time getting acquainted with not only my new grandson, but also spending quality time with Finley and Olivia, who are 5 and 3. And that's just precious, and they live so far away from me that's why I wanted to stay out here for an entire month, knowing the arrangements that I was making. But then I'm still here listening to my clients with the stuff that's happening in their lives and trying to help them solve some problems and work through some issues and recalibrate their mental health so that they can not worry so much about what's going on out in the world, but let's focus on what we can do today to make it a good day today. Because some of the goals that you might have set or some of the fast track projects that you might want to be working on, or, the patience that you're starting to lose, I can't help you with that. But I can tell you this, that whatever plans you had made or thought you had made for your life, they may be shifted. This is a really great time for you to kind of recalibrate what you thought your life was going to be like, and rather than grieving it, because we can't control that, rather than grieving the life that you thought you were that you were working toward, let's just make a new path, a new track, and think of something new, something different. That's what I've been allowing myself to do. Now, what is one of the things that you can do right now to help to recalibrate your badass attitude? And badass means having a positive one, being helpful, being kind, being generous, knowing how to withstand the storm, being resilient. That's part of what the badass attitude is. It's not, some people all want to think that it's all harsh and curmudgeon-y. That's not it. If you look at any programs today, when somebody talks about a badass, they're talking about somebody who has been through the worst in life and is still standing and not giving up and is smarter and wiser because of it. So, self-care. is crucial for recalibrating. And that's what I'm doing here in Texas. Like what? Well, the personal family time of sharing and receiving love from a brand new soul. That's right. Whenever I get to hold Emmett and just be able to love on him, it's fun. It's funny. It's like I hold babies, and you don't want to. You want to hold them close to you, but you also kind of want to look at them and see their expressions and make eye contact, and that's what's fun, and that's what's a joy, and it's sharing and receiving the love of this brand new soul. That's part of what my self-care is. And professionally, I'm taking time to study for future developments while learning new methods to bring to my clients. These are some of the things that I have powered down some of my other activities deliberately so that I was taking more time for some extreme self-care out here in Texas. So what are some of the essential components of self-care for you? So some of them can be the ABCs of self-care: awareness, okay, of your needs, your limits, your feelings, and internal and external resources. Awareness involves that mindful, non-judgmental attention to your physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual needs. All right. Such attention requires quiet time and space that supports self-reflection. Okay. Journaling. I always encourage journaling. And if you don't know how to start journaling, or you're uncomfortable with journaling, I really recommend that you get any one of my Apple a Day books. Why? Because that's how I designed them. You read a page, one page, and right next to that reading is a blank page that you can write in as a journal page. You can just start writing about what you think about what you just read. Start there. Start somewhere. But that self-awareness and that self-reflection, the quiet time that you need, I encourage you to take it, okay? Also, balance the activities at work, between work and play, between activity and rest, and between focusing on self and focusing on others. Balance provides stability and helps you to be grounded when the stress levels are high. This is where a lot of people, I want to say, fail, because balance requires boundaries. It does. And you need to know when you need to say no to something. And I've had to say no to a number of things. During, the beginning of this year, I was overcommitted on some things, but I felt like I had my professional credibility or integrity and a new friendship developing caused me to make the decision to stick it out. But once the obligation was completed, now I have decided deliberately to, okay, I'm going to back off and I'm not going to volunteer for anything for a while. Why? Well, because I kind of see the writing on the wall at home. There's some changes that need to be made at home and in my personal life and in my professional life. And so self-reflection has helped me to understand that and come to terms with that. Boundaries and seeking balance is part of my self-care plan in order to recalibrate. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do, is give yourself permission to have that quiet time. We don't want to be alone. We feel that being alone must mean that we're not loved or not worthy. But, you need to love yourself, and alone time demonstrates some self-love. All right. So when you focus on other people so much like I do, you've got to balance that with focusing on yourself. Practicing a connection to oneself, to others, and to something greater than yourself. The connection decreases isolation, increases hope, diffuses stress, and helps you share the burden of responsibility when you're working with your family or in your business or with your friends. Or, so it's like the connection to oneself is that key component there. So so what I want to encourage you to do is don't suffer alone, but spend some quiet time self-reflecting. You might find that you have symptoms of depression, and you might find that you're not motivated to do things. Some of these signs, most common signs of depression, are that persistent, depressed, low mood. It's natural to feel down from time to time, but if it's persistent, if you wake up every single morning and you're just like dreading the day to come, and the first thing you do in the morning is check the news and think about, okay, what problems do I have to solve today? Well, that can set you up for suffering from more signs of depression. Maybe you've lost interest in the things that you once enjoyed. Sometimes we lose interest in things that we used to love, and maybe you want to change that. Maybe you have feelings of worthlessness. That is one of the number one things about depression, one of the number one symptoms. But you also know that poor concentration is also a symptom of depression, and maybe thoughts of harming yourself. So I'm a proponent of managing your mental health as much as you would manage your physical health, your relationship health, and your business health. So when you're struggling from burnout or depression, it is time to nourish your soul. I've got the step-by-step plan for you, I promise. And it all starts with the B in badass, okay? You got to be bold, be brave, be confident, and be yourself. I teach you not only how to be yourself, but the ways that you're different and unique. And I encourage you to dive in and really discover who you are. I've got a plan for you, and I want you to start with the Badass Habits ebook, which you can snag for free on my website. It's 31 micro mental health habits that you can start and try out on a daily basis. It's not hard. It just takes an effort. That's what I always encourage my clients. It's like the down moods, the downward spiral, the depressed mood. It's like gravity. It's easy to get there. That's automatic. Like gravity. It's like when you let go of something, boom, it doesn't take very long for it to hit the ground, does it? But what takes effort is to improve your mood, to lift your spirits. It's like helium. It's not hard. It's pretty light, but it does take some effort. You've got to make that effort. So start with the Badass Habits ebook. I'm looking for 5 to 10 men and women, and I want to say men because oftentimes people think this is just for women. I don't know why, but automatically assumes that. But I'm looking for 5 to 10 men and women to join me this summer as we recalibrate our mental health for successful badassery. What you're going to get is you're going to get my entire digital program, which includes the Badass Certification class, which teaches you about music and how you can implement it to create your own badass soundtrack, which has already proven to be an instant attitude adjustment for you to pull you out of the depression and the doldrums and the fear and the lack of confidence and the worthlessness. You'll also get all 26, that's right, the entire Badass program, all of the tools and the components within the acronym. There are little mini lectures from me, little videos with a worksheet that goes along with it. This will help you identify so many things, your core values, what's important to you, who you are, all of these things, and plus give you tips on self-care, how to use visualization and mindfulness. And then once we're working through that, and that's all independent, self-study, you can download the worksheets anytime you want. You can repeat the steps. They are easy steps. And what I have discovered is that when you go back to it another time, you've come so far, you realize how much you've grown and you're ready to grow some more. It's a perpetual pruning, just like your garden. All right. Plus, you're going to get all 5 of my books, my 4 Kelly Orchard's Apple a Day, and my Heart Lessons, which tells the story of how my life transformed from suffering from heart failure when I was a single mom raising teenagers, self-employed in the consulting business with my dad, owned my house. The medical issue caused me to lose absolutely everything. And when all was said and done, and my doctor told me I was a miracle, after 2.5-year battle, I recalibrated my entire life and made the decision that I wanted to help people navigate their way through a crisis, whether it was a medical crisis or whatever, something that derailed your entire life. And right now, I know you listening to this badass has had your life derailed. My program will help you not get back on track, because that's not what this is about. Now, is it? I don't think any of us are ever going to get back on track. Now, you may say you want to reinvent yourself, but I say we just recalibrate who we are, create a new track, focus on that, and take the good pieces of what we've already done and add them to what we're building now. If you want to be a part of that, I'm inviting you here to have a conversation with me. Get on my email list because that's where it's all happening, and you can do that by signing up by just downloading my Badass Habits ebook that you can find on the website licensetobebadass.com. I'm ready for you. Are you ready to recalibrate your successful badassery? Because now is the time. Now more than ever, and if not now, then when? So what happens when you get on the bus to Badassville? Well, just ask Mr. Ocean.
When the bus arrives at Badassville, you discover it's not a place, it's a state of being. Snag your Badass Habits ebook. Get started on your badass journey. Go to licensedtobebadass.com. Hop on the bus to Badassville.